All right, Sean, thank you. I am so pumped that this organization exists, that this conference that got started, this collective of people is here in East Valley, Arizona. But I too, I've grown up here and love what we've got going on. So I want to jump in and talk a little bit about authenticity in the stories that we've done. This whole morning's been focused around storytelling, and I think that's a really good thing. When we think about both the word authenticity and the word storytelling, that's a little bit buzzy. There's some buzzwords there. At the same time, a discount buzzwords. But I think there's some real value in both of these things. Something that I've found in my experience in storytelling is that the biggest risk a lot of people have is they don't feel like they have a story or tell. I don't know if any of you can empathize with that. You're like, what do I have? What can I share that is worthy of people's hearers? I can tell you I felt that way as well a lot over the years. I want to take us back about 20 years. There are people in this room, several people in this room I went to high school with, which is kind of exciting. And I want to go back to my sophomore year of high school when I stood up in front of a group of people and sort of I had prepared, at least I thought, and couldn't get out the things I wanted to get out. And the teacher at the time was not kind. She was harsh. Probably right, because social about she was teaching, which she probably really was. But I remember sitting down and resigning myself to a life of not getting up in front of people to expect stories. Pretty soon after that, I went and started my first job at the movie theater in Gilbert, the Wallace Movie Theater. And I surrounded myself with people and with incredible stories on the screen. And I could tell you that in 2002, this man changed my life. Tom Cruise changed my life and got me on a path of telling stories. The reason why is there was a movie that launched on, it wasn't just a good incredible writing skill, right? There's a movie that launched on Minority Report. Any of you remember this film? Not like his biggest or best concept. Like this is still their film. This movie dropped in 2002. This movie set in this dystopian future where the government can see the crimes you're going to commit and believe that. And it's supposed to be super creepy and all kinds of things like this. But something occurred in that movie. Remember, it's 2002. We had a MySpace, but really the dawn of the internet just back in the early stages of the internet was happening. And this scene was very
Be better if it's on. There we go.
Like this was on purpose.
Everybody online, just pretend like you enjoy what we said. So this works better. This scene was an important scene in the movie where he's walking into a store. He's walking down some streets, and his eyes are getting scanned, and it's delivering personalized advertising to him about what size shirt he wants to wear, or they're advertising a Lexus and all kinds of things. And it was supposed to be super invasive, super intrusive, super creepy, but it got my brain whirring. At the time, really advertising that was existing on the internet was no different than some of the crappy advertising existed off the internet. There was lame banner ads, intrusive advertising, boring pieces. Nothing was personalized. So that got me thinking, if this is going to be the future of advertising, I want to be a part of that. I want to help shape that. I want to help create something that is more useful, because most of advertising to me felt like this, the slime ball who was going to pull one over on you. But I knew there was a different way. And so we are in this world of noise. Does this stress anybody out? Yeah, start checking your phone and all kinds of things like this. I'm going to stop that. We're in this world of noise, advertising noise, world noise, our phones popping all the time. Breaking through is hard. And stories help us break through, help us connect. People are craving real. People are craving authenticity. You're attracted to it. Our brains are attracted to it. This is the way that we've evolved as a species. And we've seen some folks cut throughout the years. Folks like Apple, who, yes, will tell you the specs and things of their devices like they did earlier this week, but that's not the way that they sell. They sell through story. They sell and teach you what you can do with the product, what you can create with the product, the outcome you can do or create and craft. The people who have made the biggest difference in the world are the folks who are willing to embrace their inner story, willing to go against the grain, willing to do something a little bit different and kick things in a different way. So the legendary marketer, Mr. Don Draper himself, says that success comes from standing out, not fitting in. This isn't news to the folks who have followed this space, but it's hard to do. So when we come back, if I could talk to Miss Navarro again, I would, and I would tell her this. I came back. I was able to do things again. I was able to reclaim my voice and my story. And Will and Evan, who are both in this room, and Kristen could probably attest to this as well, even in high school, we started telling video stories. And this wasn't a thing that you did in 2002, 2003, editing and telling video stories. And we saw that it connected with people. It brought people together. And so I first got on a stage in 2016 at the Digital Summit here in Phoenix. And I started sharing stories, and people wanted to hear more. This story was interesting, and this time on stage was interesting because Steve Wozniak, who is one of the co-founders of Apple, was also presenting at this conference. And that concerned me a bit. He presented right before I did. I got on stage and said, what can I share that would even pale in comparison to the things this man has done? And that was a wrong way of thinking because I didn't have to compare. I had my own story, my own unique way of seeing the world. And he's done amazing things. I'm not going to take anything away from him, but it did resonate with people. And the audience scored my talk higher than Mr. Steve Wozniak that day. Sorry, Steve, but that was good. And that led me to the course of being able to work with a ton of great brands. So that Mr. Tom Cruise helped me see a world that could exist to say, how might we create more effective storytelling, more effective advertising? How might we serve customers in the way that they want to be served, in the way they want to be talked to? All of us want success in life. We want growth in our business. We want to be better friends, better parents, better spouses, better, whatever it might be. And so when any business meeting I've ever been in, there's this up and to the right success. We want growth. And so what I want to teach today is a few different ways that you can harness your inner story to be able to achieve greater success. And I want to talk about it from two angles. One, your own story, and two, the brand that you work with. In some cases today, those two things are one and the same. We've seen the rise of the personal brand in a huge way, especially with the rise of social media. But in certain cases, those things are separate. And so I'm going to separate them out a little bit and start with talking on our own. We have fears in telling our story, but it does connect. What are some of those fears? There's the judgment of others. There's what might they think about me? Might they want to interact with me after they really know who I am? Now, there is a limit to authenticity, I think. There are times where it makes sense to share things and times where you may not want to. As I look, this is a little bit about me on a page. There's some vulnerability when you share your own story. I've got 4 kids. I've been married 16 years now. We were talking about some old school pinball and things. I love traditional arcades. I love being involved in the political process. I love Jurassic Park. I love great pizza. I love Arizona. I love Jesus. I love the Suns, and I love snowboarding. This is me. And those of you who know me, this is pretty authentically me. I'm not sharing everything. I'm not sharing, there's certain things that I'm not putting up on the page, but it's giving you a perspective. Now, when I share these things, some things start coming to mind. There's some what we call listenings, or already always listenings that come to mind. I don't like guys with the name of Tyler. That's just something, I don't know. There's just kind of some jerks. I don't like, why is he wearing black? What's that? What's going on here? But then, whatever you might say, you might be a Lakers fan. And if so, there's the door. No, that's fine. But, there are other things on their side where you can say, hey, there's alignment here. I'm a Suns fan. I love Arizona. I love pizza. I also love tacos. There are some connection points that may make it easier for you to have a conversation with me in the future. And we see that there's an opportunity when we are willing to express ourselves, when we are willing to authentically share the stories that we have within ourselves that have an attractive nature to them, allows us to more easily connect with people. Because, like I said before, today is noisy. Advertising world's noisy. The world's just noisy in general. And so to be able to stand out in the sea of sameness, whether it's you as a person or you as a brand or the brand that you represent, you have to do things a little different. And people crave the authenticity that exists in this world. And so you have to have what we call this pattern interrupt. Any of you who are fans of Seth Godin or the purple cow concept, this is what we talk about. People look to those who are standing out, not those who are just trying to fit in and be like everybody else. You're not. Each of us has our unique history, our unique story, our unique lens that we see the world through. And the more we embrace that, the more we share that, the more we open that, the more people will reciprocate and bring it back to us. What works in storytelling? Being real, being transparent, being honest, being bold. And I know those things may sound simplistic, but there are ways that we can bring those out in the way that we tell our stories. What doesn't work is being fake. We've seen over the rise of the 2010s a rise of a lot of that. Scams, fakeness, over-polish. We're seeing really a pullback on that right now, and I think that's a good thing. But to combat that, what have we seen? We've seen reviews. Is there anything of any sort of substance that you buy today that you don't read a review on, or you don't talk to somebody about, right? You go to Yelp. God bless them. Or you go on the Amazon reviews, or you talk to friends or anything like that. You're smiling because Yelp's a bunch of jerks, man. I don't ever work with those guys. Sorry, guys. But this is what we do. As humans, we want to move past the fakeness, right? Want to move past the scams. And we do that. The brands who do that best do it through telling stories. Now, it's hard to see between. Is this person being authentic? Are they being real? Do they have an affinity or an association with someone that I can connect to, or a brand that I can connect to? And it makes it much easier for people to move through when we can connect in certain ways. When I was telling the story earlier, you may have thought back to your own high school career, or the first time you stepped on a stage or in front of people, or the first job that you had, or the Tom Cruise movie you like, or something. There's other connections that connect with you, and that's the way our brains work when we tell stories. People can empathize, they can feel. Even if you personally hadn't gone through that same experience, you've had something in your life likely that you can connect to there. Now, we're in a world today where celebrities are closer than ever. When the richest man in the world is challenging the other richest man in the world to a junk measuring contest and fighting each other, we're in an interesting space where, like I said, authenticity can potentially go a little too far. We also have this world where AI is raising its head in a big way. And while I think there's a lot of excitement around that, and I see a lot of value, I'm also highly concerned about the reduction in authenticity. If any of you are like me, your LinkedIn inbox gets filled with these impersonal, AI-generated outreach emails. How many of them get responded to? None. Very few. What does get responded to? People like this, people who I've met or know or have connected with me, right? So I have a fear of the impersonalization that's rising with AI. And I think we can leverage it appropriately, but don't let it submarine the authenticity in our storytelling. So I want to share about a couple of great friends and people who I think do an incredible job of being authentically them. We're here in Mesa, the hometown of this gentleman. Many of you probably know him. This is Ben Christensen. Great friend of mine, and probably a great friend of a number of folks in this room. He is authentically him. If you know Ben, this is him. He loves the West. He loves Arizona. He loves his kids. He loves his wife. He loves telling incredible stories. He loves breaking things down to the basics of what makes a great story. Now, he puts this out there, filtered in probably a certain sense, but in a sense that's real and is really him. And so when Evan and I need to work on a great project that might need the skill set that this man has, it makes it really easy to have him top of mind because he's not sitting in his cocoon making great art and not sharing it with anybody. He's putting it out there, and it's that attraction has led him to working with some of the biggest and best brands in the world, like Harley Davidson and Disney and lots of other fun folks, because they know what they get. They know the authenticity. And I guarantee you that what they get when he shows up on set is even better, actually, than what they see here. But it's really, really close. Another couple folks. So we saw the rise of the influencer The first company I started was an influencer marketing agency. We grew that, had a lot of fun with that. And there's been great things there and really inauthentic things in the world of influencer marketing. A couple of folks who I think are doing it well here in Arizona are these folks. This is Dallin and Bella Lambert. They share everything. Not everything, but they share a lot of things. And they even shared their struggle with infertility. I think what's hard for us, it's easy for folks to share things that are going well in your life. It's hard for you to share both brands as well as people when things are not going so well. And they went down the path of adoption. And their first adoption that they tried to get was a scam. And it was a very heartbreaking moment for them. And I think they could have just crawled inside and never shared with the world, with the platform they have, but they did. And I think it brought a lot of empathy toward them. And I love the way that they interact with the world. It's very real, very authentic. And they're the type of people I love working with and being friends with. So when we look at telling authentic stories, there are a few things I want us to think about. It builds trust. It allows us to create connection. We feel like we can interact with this individual or this brand, and it sets you apart because it's hard, it's scary, it's vulnerable, and so a lot of people just don't do it. To do well, you have to master empathy, understand the audience, understand the people, understand the customer, understand the person that you're getting in front of. Work to put yourself in their shoe. Know your superpower. What is it that you do really well? There's something. Everybody has something incredibly well. Very organized, just very personal, personable, incredible at building Legos. I don't know what it is, but there's something that you do well. Understand that, embrace it, be cool with it, tell people about it. Don't keep it inside. And then embrace your weirdness. I hired a lot of new people right out of college, and they came out in many cases so buttoned up and so like what they feel like they should be as this person right out of college. It's like I always wanted to break those things apart and say, what is it that you do that's a little bit strange, right? And there was a woman who came right out of college and she was so buttoned up and she was like, I was like, what is it you do? She's like, well, I competed in Norway in the professional baton twirling Olympics. And I was like, why are you not telling this all the time to everybody? Because this is incredible. And she started. And then she found a tribe of people here in Phoenix that do like fire baton twirling. And she did it on the weekends then. And it's like, that was a brilliant cut through. That was this attractant that allowed when she went to client meetings, people were like, oh yeah, you're the baton twirler girl. Like, that's amazing. And it was so cool. All right. So we all have stories, but sometimes like, Tyler, I just kind of live. Like, I don't have stories. How do I bring those out? One of my favorite exercises for finding a story inside you is this. I was blank. Now I'm blank. Sit with that for a second. I guarantee you can start filling in the blank on a few things. I was single. Now I'm married. I had no kids. Now I have kids. I was in a job I hated. Now I'm doing something that fulfills me every single day. And that gap in between those two things is a story. And it's a story worth sharing. So if there's ever a time where you're like, gosh, what is something I could share? What is something I could tell? Go back to that exercise. I also love my wife always gets excited when I say, get this, because she knows, she sits down. She's like, all right, what are you, like, there's some juicy tea going on right here. Get this. So if there is kind of a get this moment, those are always fun stories. Think of the strangest things that happened to you recently. What is something strange? What's something odd? What's something different, out of the ordinary? There's typically a kernel of story there. Or just seeking unique insights in the mundane. Something I've talked about recently is, and we see this rise on TikTok in a big way right now. Do you guys know what the numbers on the toaster mean? Is it the amount of toastiness, or is it the minutes that it's toasting? I don't know. There's some fun discussion there. So this is I think often attributed to Mr. Rogers, but this is, whether he actually said it or just carried it around in his pocket, I'm not sure. There isn't anyone you couldn't love once you heard their story. And if you think about that, I think it's very, very true. Even people who might seem a little challenging or might seem a little rough, when you understand who they are, where they came from, what their background is, typically you gain some empathy. The brands who are willing to open up, and we're going to go to brand right now, win more customers, even and especially when there are things that go wrong. So what's breaking through in the world today? In the 90s, we saw just a lot of polish, a lot of like never admit mistake, never admit failure, even in the early part of this century as well. But you have things like this guy, never was on any sort of chart, never published any sort of song, and broke through and became the number one artist on the Billboard chart. There's some interesting reasons potentially for that with the way the world's going. Or the rise of Matt Rife. Anybody you know, have you seen Matt Rife or familiar with him? This is a guy who's been in comedy for a decade. Why is he breaking out now? Well, he went to TikTok and he started posting some of his crowd work on TikTok. And because of that, he's absolutely exploded recently. He put out a world tour that sold out in 2 days, 600,000 tickets around the world for 2 years. This is something that most comedians dream of. But he was able to be very authentic, very real, and break through. Or you've seen Bobby Altoff. This is a woman who just was kind of a influencer on TikTok, and recently started this podcast that shot up the charts. She got Drake on her podcast. She got Shaq on her podcast. All kinds of interesting folks, and she is just absolutely broken through because of the being different, being unique, being vulnerable, willing to speak. Another couple of things. So you have these big brands in the world. Big brands are having a challenge because authenticity from a brand like Microsoft is hard. So you have this type of thing, which I'm seeing break through in a big way. This is a guy who runs a hot sauce company with his dad. And something you'll see in this, yeah, we'll do this. I don't know. Do we have any? Whatever. That's fine. We'll pause that. With this, the point I was going to make on this is this guy is willing to bring the customer in a huge way. So he talks about the mistake that they went super viral, and he's like, we ran out of product, and I'm super sorry, and here's what I'm going to do about it. He films himself packing people's orders all the time, and it's become a super fun thing. So rather than just being this polished hot sauce brand and talk about the chilies and what they roast them and all of this, he has been able to break it down and bring the customer into the experience. Or this pickle sweatshirt, which has gone crazy viral as well. It's just super odd, super random, very different, but she again brings the customer in. It's not this very large company. They were able to break through and tell their story differently. Same type of thing. We've seen a rise of the, hey, my dad created this and nobody's buying it, appeal to driving sales. And so this gentleman, talking about his dad designing this shirt and back in the 80s, and it's broken through in a big way. And I don't know if they're in the audience here, but these are a couple of folks that we're friends with. They have created a gaming company, and this content's very simplistic, but it does. It doesn't look our audio is going to work for us here. But they've done this very simple gaming concepts, which in the past year has earned them over 3 billion views and over 6 million followers. And it's because they've gone back and said, hey, we understand our customer. Let's get very simple and go from there. So the stories from a brand or from you as an individual that's going to work and work best are stories that educate, stories that entertain, stories that inspire, stories that inform. Is there some sort of value that you're bringing? Is there some sort of connection point you can make? The things that can work from a content standpoint, bringing people behind the scenes. People want to see more real, more authenticity, opening up when you've screwed up or when something didn't go super well. I was in Vegas on Saturday night attempting to go to an Ed Sheeran concert. We were inside the arena when Ed Sheeran posted on Instagram that the concert was canceled. It was supposed to start in 10 minutes. People could be frustrated. I'm sure a lot of folks were. But the way he approached it was very real. It was very authentic. He showcased that there was a danger, there was a concern with the stage, and expressed the sorrow that existed there. The Allegiant Stadium did not. They didn't post anything for like an hour and a half. And there's a lot of frustration around the way that they handled it. It was a difference between an authentic story and the way it was handled differently. And then real influencers. If you're going to be working with influencers at all, I know we'll talk a little bit more throughout this conference, work with people that actually love your brand or actually love the brand they're talking about, not just someone being paid to talk nice. only have a couple minutes, so I'm going to skip this. But I want to talk and share this final story. This is a gentleman named Lauren Brinton. And Lauren's another good friend of mine. And I've asked permission to share this story, but this was several years ago, and he and I were doing some work for Ralph's Grocery Store, and we were telling stories. We were telling stories about the fresh produce that they source in California. And while we were there, we were in a hotel, and Lauren gets a call from his wife, Lex, and she's in Vietnam. And she goes, Lauren, I just got off a scooter with a guy named Steve. And he goes, first of all, who's Steve? Why are you on a scooter? What's going on? And they had this fun interaction. But she was in Vietnam visiting the factory where they make their bags. So this company, they started a company called Walker Family Goods. And they make bags like this. Their whole goal is to, inspire people to travel simply. And they had a struggle at the time because he said, we're trying to figure out, should we share to the world where our bags are manufactured? What does that look like? What does it feel like? That isn't really part of the look and feel of what we're doing. But they made a decision very early on in their business to be real, to be very real, to tell their customers how things work. Now, they don't make a habit of showcasing the full manufacturing process of their business. That's not the stories they tell, but they didn't want to be inauthentic from day one. And this is what they shared. And they've shared a lot of behind the scenes. And because of that, it has allowed them to be very, very real. They made that decision early on. They put a commitment to that, and it has caused an attraction to this brand that is huge. And it's allowed them to blow up and create a fan base that knows that what they're going to get from them is genuine, is quality, and it's going to last. And so they share themselves. Now, not every brand will do that or should do that, but it is a direct reflection of who they are, and it comes through in every piece of content that they do. This is Devin Booker. Devin Booker is different than most NBA players. He looks different, he acts different, he feels different. And it's no knock on anybody else, but rather than the flash, he is very authentic. He's very vulnerable in the way that he comes out. He's less polished. This is a sense of who he is. So when he launched his shoe, his new Nike shoe, Nike didn't come down and film this big, expensive commercial. He grabbed a handy cam with a buddy of his, really great creative, and they just cruised around the city, showing the shoe, talking about it. And this old handy cam from 2002, they made the Nike, or the reveal of his shoe. This cuts through. It feels different. It feels more authentic. It feels better and has allowed them to cut through the noise. So when Devin wanted to start a beverage brand, he said, I want to do it a little differently. And Evan and I have helped work and build this brand in a big way. And so we wanted to make it look different and not just be like the Gatorades of this world. So we focused on this whole concept of people over product. Yes, the product's there, but we want to showcase the people behind it. Even in the imagery that is taken, everything is intended to be more real, showcasing real situations, real people. Everybody can drink this at any point, but definitely some of the activities that you have. So we have it in just these very real situations, very real environments, not overly polished. And this whole concept that we brought into this brand is real drinks real. So you may have seen this, and this is the last story I'll end with. This was the major turning point. We set up this brand to be a real brand. And one of the other owners of the brand is a guy named D'Angelo Russell, who plays for the LA Lakers. And during the playoffs this year, he did something that fundamentally changed the course of this brand. He brought one of these bottles that you see here to the post-game interview. Now, Cocoa 5 is not the official drink of the LA Lakers. And so what happened, I'll show you. Yeah, we're not going to have audio. I'll narrate for a quick second. So he brings it here. The woman who's in charge sees it, and she goes, that's not going to happen. So she did the best thing that ever could have happened to our brand, and she comes over, and she snatches it right from that table. Okay, he challenges her a little bit, having a little bit of fun with it. He's like, all right, you're going to have to take it. She grabs it, and that sets it off. Okay? The internet was hyped. They said, this is what we do. Does anyone know who the official drink partner for the LA Lakers is? Yeah, nope. And y'all don't. It's a brand called BioStill. It's got to suck to be them because we got all of this. It went crazy. It went all over the place. You had it on ESPN. You had, Charles Barkley talking about it. You had Devin Booker talking about it. You had it written up on hundreds of articles. It absolutely sent. And it sent because it was real. It was a real moment. It was an authentic experience. D'Lo comes and says, he doubles down in the next game because he crushed that game and he doubled down. Everyone's saying, I'm going to get this. I'm going to make this happen. Our sales exploded on e-com. We exploded. Other retailers were calling us saying, we want to carry you in our store. It's like everything that you typically have to fight for. And I look and Evan and I go, yeah. So all you have to do, guys, is get an NBA player to bring your product to the stand, and that's how it works. That's the end of my talk. No, it was this real moment, this authentic moment that caused the consumer even to say, I'm so sick of traditional advertising. I'm going to buy this drink because I support anyone who's going to act and be like that. I'm going to skip so we can be done. You want to finish and do well in the stories you tell. Be honest, never fake it. Tell real stories, connect with people in ways that you serve them, and embrace the brand identity you have. Build it, embrace it. People will respect you for it. Purpose of a storytelling is to connect all of us together. The brands that we have, the people we serve. You do that, you'll be successful. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate it.